Hello everyone and welcome back to another YouTube video, and our question topic for today is how safe is Canada compared to Barbados? So I guess I can start. Um so uh Safety in Canada. Honestly, for the years that I've lived here, I have not experienced any unsafe activities. Um And funny enough, I used to live in what was considered one of the most dangerous places when I first moved to Canada. When I say first moved to Canada, I'm talking about since I became an adult because, as I'm pretty sure we know now if you've watched these videos, I've lived here as a child in elementary school. I used to live right downtown. And then at one point we lived in Scarborough too. But since I moved here as an adult, I used to live on Jane Finch, and everybody knows Jane Finch to be a pretty bad area. But honestly, during the time that I lived there, at the time I was in college, I did not experience any negative activities. Um, I'm not sure if it's because I'm a homebody and I don't really go as much in terms of like out in the community and socialize with people. I don't know if it's because of that reason or if at the time when I lived there, crime was not as rampant. Because honestly, there were times that I used to leave home at night to catch a bus, and especially during the times when I had to go back home to Barbados, I would go to the airport and meet up my friend or whatever, and I would take the bus around 11:30, near 12 at night, and I would be standing at the bus stop by myself, and I never had an issue, never had a problem. I always thank God. When I hear the horror stories from Jane Finch, um, I was like, I've never experienced it. I cannot tell you a horror story from Jane Finch. What I can tell you is that Jane Finch has a large black population. Um, it does have other people too as well, but other races. But everybody's friendly. Everybody was always like, looking out that type of way or whatever. But I've never had any negative experiences there. Um, and then after Jane Finch, I moved to Driftwood, which is probably also considered a somewhat bad neighborhood as well. I don't know. Again, I had no bad experiences there. It was an possibility I wasn't in the bad area of Driftwood at that time. I was more so in the where all the homes are and stuff. At that time, I had rented my basement apartment, and it was a nice experience. I literally cannot say anything bad about that. And then since then I moved, but nowhere I have lived here have I experienced robbing, uh, killing, or any other type of crime. And maybe I was fortunate enough to have that experience, and I'm grateful to God that I was able to have that experience. But when I am driving, going to work, or wherever, I sometimes listen to the radio. I tend to listen to what's the station that I just listen to now?
98.7.
Yeah, 98.7, which plays a lot of Caribbean music and black music, etc. And I hear on the news. Sometimes when the news come over, I hear like this shooting happened or whatever. And I'm like, what? Where? Like, I have no idea because other than hearing that on the news, I literally have never experienced anything. I live in one of the most safest places for all the years of being here. I can go out at night, walk around, whatever. Never, never have I ever heard of or seen or witnessed any bad situation, and I am fortunate enough to have that experience. Same thing for back home in Barbados. Um, where we live, yeah, you have the regular, the guys on the block, um, the smoking, the drinking, whatever. Again, never have we experienced any real bad situation. We did experience like a killing, but that was between a police and somebody that used to live around our neighborhood, and it was an unfortunate incident. He died right on our step, and we witnessed that. And like we said, it was unfortunate, but it was like a rare type thing. It was a once in a blue moon type occurrence. And other than that, we've always been safe in our neighborhood back home. So I don't really have any major negative things to say about crime where I've lived. So I don't even know if I answered the question. How was? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, what I would say too, I have to share the same sentiments with Shanita. I've never really experienced any crime here where we live in Canada. I heard Shanita say that you could walk boat and like during the night and stuff, but the coyotes.
It's not about the coyotes.
The coyotes are the only criminals.
And we barely see the
And the raccoons.
coyotes.
Majority of the time is with the raccoons, but the raccoon, if you don't trouble the raccoon won't trouble you. But I for one don't like being outside so late at night because I'm afraid of the animals. But other than that, I've never had any robbery, anything of that nature. You know, where we live is pretty safe, and I remembered even like it wasn't safe back then versus now, cause I had a friend that I had invited. I invited her to come over, and she was like, "Oh my God, where you live is a bad area." Um,
That was when we lived in
no, that's when we
Driftwood.
live here.
Oh.
No, here in on Jane at Eglinton.
Mm.
So like apparently back in the day, those places were like anytime it looks like anytime you say the word Jean,
Yeah.
it's a bad area.
Mm.
From what it looks like, but no, the other places no that you never really heard of like crime, like for example, Ajax, Brampton, Mississauga. You're hearing a lot more crimes going on there. Recently, we did hear about a murder in Jane and Driftwood, sorry, French and Driftwood as well. So, I mean, crime will always be there, but we have not experienced it, praise Jesus.
Yeah, but I hear what Tony's saying, but I've lived here on Jean, technically, different areas of Jean, but I've lived on Jean for over 10 years, and I've literally within that 10 year span never experienced any uh, crime or criminal activity. And maybe they were talking about like years ago, but since then I would more so hear crime now in Brampton, a lot of crime in Brampton, a lot of crime in those type of areas. Even downtown, like we used to live downtown when we were kids, never experienced. You have a lot of homeless people, a lot of drug addicts, etc. But even downtown when we lived there, there wasn't any real crime, um, and that was the only time when we were kids. But as adults living on GM, never have experienced any criminal activities. So very grateful for that.
Very thankful. Then now, as it relates to Barbados again, where we lived in Barbados, we didn't have crime. Yes, you might see like a little one or two times somebody stole from us back home or whatever, but again, that was years ago. But as of recent, it has not happened. Um, but right now, before we would say Barbados is a very safe place, but the crime rate that it is at now, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. Even when I went back home as of recently, my mom was like, be careful, don't be out so late, because you know what's going on now. And it has people literally living in fear, don't want to leave their homes. So, what I would say is that our community rather, our community wasn't too bad. But what I would say now is like, just be safe.
Yeah, home has definitely gotten out of hand now. I remember back in the day, people would leave home, leave the house open, go wherever, do whatever. You could go out and chill. Now people have to be worried about their vehicles being taken or, you know, stolen, whatever, and have to worry about being attacked, being robbed, being killed. Home is getting pretty ridiculous in terms of the crime rate. But I mean, obviously, home will always be home for me, and I love my country. and so I would always jump at the chance to go home to visit whenever I need to, um, or whenever I get an opportunity to, which is technically almost every year. But um, but yeah, for me, I still see home as a very loving place with very loving people. Our people are
Yes.
very kind, very friendly, very supportive in terms of like they're always willing to help out one another. And honestly, it's a lot of the young people that have gravitated to this criminal life, criminal type activity. And the thing is, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of young people out there that are very, very helpful and kind and friendly to people. But uh, the way things have turned, it has just taken a drastic negative turn where people are literally fearing for their lives and their safety and their children's safety and stuff like that. So it's unfortunate. But my hope and prayer for our country is that it continues to well, I should say it should start to rebuild in a positive light, and for the young people to find more positive things, optimistic things to do in order to cut down on the criminal activity. But yeah, for us, we were always fortunate enough to have a
Environment.
safe net, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
where we lived, wherever we lived, whether it was back home in Barbados whether it was, um, or whether it was here in Canada. Though I have had people in my life that have had violent stuff happen to them, including getting killed. I remember one of my old friends, he got killed back home in Barbados. It was very hurtful for me because we were pretty close growing up and stuff. But that's sometimes that happens when you kind of follow the
Bad
the
company.
wrong company. And he used to like go out with all these different people and and do different things and probably was in a gang, etc., etc., because he did by trying to protect somebody else or whatever. Yeah, I'm not going to go into that story too deep, but yeah, we have known people that have unfortunately had negative experiences, even to the point of death happened to them. But for us personally, it was we've our experiences other than the ones we know of are personally we've always had pretty good experiences.
Yeah. Even with the same friend that Shanta would have said, that passed, it hurt me too because I would have seen him about a couple weeks ago, and he did ask me for my
Not
sister.
couple
Sorry,
weeks,
not couple weeks. Sorry, when that
the
had
years that
happened,
happened. Yeah,
when this happened, I had saw him couple weeks prior
right.
to the time he passed. Sorry about that. And he asked me for Shanita, and I told him she's okay, and I spoke to him, and we had a good conversation or whatever. But yeah, it was very unfortunate, but it is what it is. Um, so yeah.
So to answer the question about how safe is Canada compared to Barbados, I don't want to say Barbados. I don't want to say Canada is safer. The reality is Canada is a way bigger country than Barbados. I
A
am
hundred
not sure.
Barbados could fit Canada.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we know of all the criminal activities because
Right.
recently too on the news, very close to where I live here in Canada as well, or where I live here in Toronto. I heard of an unfortunate situation where a little boy was sleeping in his bed or
Oh
about
yeah.
to go to bed, and he got shot. And I was like dumbfounded because it was like this actually happened, and unfortunately he died. I think he was only like 7 or 8 or something, and this happened pretty close to where we live. But the thing is, like, again, we don't really hear about these things or see these things happening or whatever because it's almost like a different world or something. The only time I really hear about all this stuff is if I turn on the radio and the news come true, and I'm like, what is like what, So
And I'm one of those people too that don't really I try not to follow the news too
me
much
too.
because for me personally I can get saddened quickly. by watching the news. So I try my best not to watch it too often. Maybe once a week I look at it to see what's going on around the world or whatever. But then when I see something that looks really heart wrenching or sad, I turn it off and put on the comedy. Because this world can be toxic and it's messed up, and you can't be filling your mind with that negative energy or that sad energy around you, especially when you know yourself, um, knowing that maybe you might get sad pretty quickly or you might start to take on things that is going on. So you gotta know yourself, and people might tell me, "Oh, you gotta know what's going on in the news too," but I gotta know for myself. My sister gotta know for herself, and we have to know what we can handle, right? So, especially emotionally.
Yeah. But other than what we hear on the news and stuff, like Tony said, we don't really hear the news. Like, I hear the news every day now because I'm traveling further. I travel a lot more for work, and so I listen to the radio a lot while I'm driving, and that's the only time that I hear the news that comes through. And then usually when it comes through, it's like a very short clip of the news. It's not like a long period. Yeah. So, but other than that, yeah, everything is pretty okay, safe where we live in our neighborhood, in our environment, whatever. And so yeah, in terms of Canada being safer than Barbados, I can't really say it is. I mean, it is for us because we don't experience, and we have been hearing a lot of horror stories back home. But yeah,
you can't really compare Barbados to Canada too, yeah, because the demographics, that's the word, because that's like comparing apples to oranges. You can't do it, right? So, anyways, guys, we thank you for watching our video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment also letting us know about what we letting them leave a comment for though. I forget.
About how safe is your environment, your neighborhood, or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Bye bye.
To the loops.